We're going to discuss a really creative project in North Clare which has been bringing science, art and environmental awareness together in a hands-on way. Pupils from Clooney National School have teamed up with CÚRAM researchers and environmental artist Evelyn Sorohan to create striking wildlife artworks made entirely from recycled plastic waste. The project is aiming to highlight the impact of plastic on the environment while encouraging sustainable thinking from an early age. And I'm joined in studio by the environmental artist and educator Evelyn Sorohan, and we're also joined by Zoom by two students representing 4th, 5th and 6th class at Clooney National School, two Heathers, Heather Broderick and Heather Harrison, and a very good morning to both of you. Evelyn, I might start with yourself, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about how this collaboration between Clooney National School and CÚRAM first came about, and what the aim of the project was starting out.
Well, I feel very fortunate. Marie Minogue, the principal, gave me a ring. She had already done a teacher training course up with CÚRAM, which is the research laboratory. Research laboratories as part, I think they're part of UCG, and they were linking with the school, and they hope to do a programme, a STEAM programme with some of the pupils in the school. So Marie asked would I come along and collaborate with Sarah Grundy from CÚRAM, and we put together an 8-week programme for the kids.
Okay, and I'm sure it was a very enjoyable experience for them. And what do they actually cover over the course of the workshops?
Yeah, well, they were learning about what the scientists do in the research laboratories. And these are people from Clare and Galway, researchers, and they're working there on trying to create and develop medical devices for people with chronic diseases, and also looking at cures, or how could new cures be brought about. So they were telling us even some of them dive down deep into the Atlantic Ocean, down to the marine life, the fish and the plant life, and they're looking at the cells and hoping maybe in the future they can provide some solutions. So the children were fascinated with this. And then she showed them what they do in the laboratories, and that they often use slime in these Petri dishes as part of their experiments. And then the children said, "Oh, can we work with slime?" And
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, that was one of their favourite things. Then they learned about, we looked at plastics, because the Green Lab, or this research lab, is a green lab. They're trying to reduce the amount of plastic they use. And Clooney National School is a green school, so they're very much into sustainability and recycling and so on. So it all coming together. And then Sarah, one of the researchers, she said, could we do a programme around plastic? So she did experiments about what plastic is made from, how it's made. So the children were playing these mad twister games. They were making slime. They were, and then I came in at that point, and we talked about how difficult plastic is to recycle, and how we maybe need to move away from one-off plastic items and look for alternatives, or if we are using plastic, to recycle and recreate. So the kids made fabulous pieces of art that would, if we had to buy the materials, could cost 5,000. But they used plastic waste from home, and Sarah brought down stuff from the laboratory. So we'd all of these fabulous materials, and their imaginations exploded, and they took off creating.
It sounds like very educational, informative, but also good fun as well. And let's bring in Heather Broderick and Heather Harrison. And because we have two Heathers, I'll use your full names. Heather Broderick, it sounds like it was good fun. How did you find the experience?
Well, I enjoyed working with Evelyn and making our mural, because I really love art, and Evelyn made it a really fun experience. And I also really enjoyed working with Sarah and doing interesting experiments on plastic and learning about how it affects our environment.
And what about yourself, Heather Harrison? What was your favourite part of working on this particular project?
Well, I enjoyed learning about how hard plastic is to recycle with Sarah, and also creating our work of art with Evelyn.
And yeah, I wonder about the learning and the fun aspect, Heather Broderick. It sounds like all of you got both of those from this. Is it much easier to learn when the learning is fun?
It is a lot easier to learn when it's fun. Yes, definitely.
The artworks based on local wildlife, quite a few of them there, Heather Harrison. Talk to us about some of the animals you chose.
Well, we chose to create a fox, squirrel, goldfinch and a robin because we wanted to create awareness because those are the animals from our environment we wish to protect.
And Heather Broderick, how did it feel seeing your finished artwork displayed at the entrance to your school? I'm sure all your fellow classmates and everyone going to school, were you all getting compliments and slaps on the back?
Oh, well, I felt very proud to have those artworks that we made up on the wall at the school for everyone to see and the mayor to see as well. It was very, very fun.
Yeah, you can imagine how exciting that is. And Evelyn, I guess how important is it to introduce, these kinds of environmental messages at primary school level, and I guess instill the knowledge, awareness, and good habits and a good approach to the environment and what needs to be done going forward for people when they're that young?
Oh, well, I'm so passionate about this area. I think it's absolutely crucial given climate change and the world that we're in at the moment. But what I loved was the pupils in Clooney National School. They were very open to learning. But Donncha Murphy, their teacher, he was very supportive. He gave them the space, the time, the encouragement all along the way, as did their principal. And there wasn't a workbook or textbook in sight. It was all about them doing the experiments with Sarah, chatting, collaborating, problem solving, going down to the hall that looked a little bit like Aina Dump at times. But out of that came the amazing pieces of art. And there was a lot of problem solving because Heather and the other 4th, 5th and 6th children, they had to make their own little individual pieces, but then they had to think, how do we go from a small drawing of our squirrel or our goldfinch up to make this piece of art that's 1.5 metres by 1 metre that'll be permanent at the front at the front of our school. And they were a little bit like, oh, how do we do that? And eventually I think one child said maybe ratio. So they took one drawing and they broke it into quarters and then transferred it to a large piece of paper. Broke it into quarters and each part then was sort of copied. But then there was another problem. We said usually with these art pieces I'd create them on marine plywood, but the plywood is inclined to rot, as we discovered after 10 years or that. So then Tom Keneally, a gentleman from the community and from Ennismenshed, but he's from Clooney, he said, Evelyn, did you ever think of using stockboard as a canvas or as a board to create on? So this stockboard, imagine, is made from farmers' silage wrapping. So it's recycled, it's really, really strong, and it became the back. And this Tom Keneally cut them out for us. He brought them into Clooney School. The children then drew the large pieces on them. Then they created like a jigsaw, the pieces. We did a free run first to see what it looked like. And then eventually they created the real thing. But Tom, his knowledge, and again, so that lovely link with the community. And then he made these beautiful steel frames for the pieces and put them up for the school. So a big shout out to Tom for doing all that.
Okay, so how many people involved in the whole process? And as I say, it sounds like it was informative, but also fun as well. And I just wonder, Heather Broderick, has been involved in this project? Has it changed how you think about using plastic in everyday life? Was that even something you thought about before getting involved in it?
Well, it wasn't really something I thought about before getting involved in the project. But now that I've learned a lot more about plastic, I've stopped using so much plastic to help my environment and to stop all the pollution.
What about yourself, Heather Harrison? Did you even think, if you buy a drink in the shop and it's in a plastic bottle, or other things that you get that are in plastic, would it ever really occurred to you beforehand what this is made out of and whether it's good or bad for the environment, and has been part of this project now made you think about that going forward?
No, I've never really thought about using too much plastic. But now that we've done loads of interesting workshops with Sarah and Evelyn, I've learned that it's good to reuse plastic and don't just throw it away.
Well, it sounds like it's instilling good habits, Evelyn. For other schools thinking about taking on a similar project, what would you say to them?
Oh, I would say go for it. I'd say get in contact, or there's lots of ways that they can get involved, like through the Blast Art Project. So they get in contact with Clare Education Centre and they're given funding. So they work with an artist like myself over a number of weeks, or they can apply for the Creative Schools Initiative. It's worth 8,000 or 9,000 to a school, and again they're linked in with an artist, and they can again work with scientists and so on work like this. They can apply for that. It's open to apply for now. Quite easy to get the funding. So yeah, and I'm working I want to give a shout out to Inch National School. I'm there working with their kids on wildlife and Inch Fort mural. Kildysart Secondary School, they're creating vehicles and costumes of the future made from waste, paper and cardboard. Murphy National School, they made a big 5 metre by 5 metre mural, and I'm in the next 4 or 5 weeks going up to Drumandura National School. All of those schools are linked in with the Blast or Creative Schools programmes.
Okay, thank you for joining us in studio this morning, the environmental artist and educator Evelyn Sorohan, and thanks also to the two Heathers, students at the school as well, Heather Broderick and Heather Harrison, who are students at Clooney National School. Thanks to both of you as well for joining us on Morning Focus.